Hello, and welcome to Spooky Stitches, the podcast that is 50% wool and 50% ectoplasm. My name is Sheena Peril. I am a knitting novelist and your host. Below you will find links to all of my books and patterns, as well as chapter headings so that you can skip around. Thank you so much for stopping by if you're new, and thank you so much to my returning viewers for coming back. I'm trying to avoid the glare by taking off my glasses. I do have my script in front of me though, so I don't know how long this is actually going to last. So this will probably be the last regular podcast of the year. I might be able to squeeze in like something in December, but I have a lot of personal things coming up and I don't know if I'm going to have time to sit down and record. There's a lot of writing and research and prep that goes into most of these episodes, and I just don't always have time to do that. There might still be like vlogs and bonus videos, just not these formal sit-down podcasts. The other thing in limbo right now is my Twitter account. As much as I would love to just yeet it into Mount Doom since the takeover, I don't have a good alternative. The writing community doesn't have a good alternative, and probably 60% of my marketing is done through Twitter. I don't use Facebook. Instagram isn't really great for conversations or finding new readers, in my opinion. And Ravelry cuts out at least 50% of my audience, not to mention their issues with accessibility. So are we resurrecting Tumblr? I guess I've just been waiting to see where everyone goes when they do eventually delete their accounts. For right now, I do highly recommend that you subscribe and hit the bell, because I now have access to the communities page on YouTube. So I am using that kind of like Twitter to post announcements and let you know when there's going to be a video, if there's a delay, links to stuff that I talk about, all that kind of good stuff. I'm also trying to get better about using Instagram, and I do have a Tumblr where you can find all of my recent blog posts, as well as content that I've been putting on there just to put a little bit more life back into that particular account. The new job is going well, and I am really hoping this one becomes permanent. Keep your fingers crossed. Apparently it has not been good for my knitting though. I feel like I've been knitting continuously for months and I just have one sad little FO to show for it. So I do still need to weave in my ends, but I finished this up last night, and this is a kerchief cowl that I made for my mom for Christmas. I don't have a pattern or anything for this, but it's just a basic triangle shawl pattern, and then I connected the ends in the back once I realized I didn't have enough yarn, so I just put that on upside down. There we go. So it's kind of like a dicky, and it covers that V in your coat at the collar, and then she can kind of pull it up for her nose if she wants to. So this just used up some leftover yarn that I had. This is one of the commercial blend cones from customyarn.com, aka Yarnia in Portland. So this is cotton and bamboo, and these are mill ends from commercial knitting companies that have just been wound together to make this colorway. I will post the information down in the description though. If you would like to see a pattern or recipe for this, I would be happy to whip one up really quick. It's very simple. So my whips feel like they are all in purgatory right now, where you just keep knitting and knitting and knitting and nothing happens. And that means that I've been casting on new things, like the cowl, just so I can feel like I've accomplished something. So this is the office sweater that I've spoken about a couple of times. This was living in my desk at my last placement, and now it's been living in my work bag. But I think that it's time to switch it out for something else, because it is getting a little bit larger, a little bit more complicated at this point. It's just a raglan I'm not using a pattern for it. Cardigan. This light color is Knitpicks Hawthorne. The purpley burgundy color is Knitpicks Stroll. And I don't remember what this dark one is, but I will put it down in the show notes once I find the label for it. But it's just a very simple raglan. Each stripe is 16 rows, and then I'm doing raglan increases for the sleeves. It's going to be a cardigan, and then I'm going to trim the opening at the bottom and the cuffs with this burgundy to use up some leftover yarn. It is just a basic raglan, like I said, which I'm designing as I go. I realized right after I started my current job that my shoulder increases were off. So one of the fronts was twice the size of the other, and I had to rip back all the way to the collar to fix it. So I've basically started that over since like October 6th, I think. Thankfully, it is going well now. I do think I'm going to take that out of my work bag though and just leave it here to work on at home and swap it for something that has a few less colors to wrangle, just to make things a little bit easier when I'm traveling. And then there's this. So this is the By Pride hoodie that I'm making for my friend. And the last time that you saw this, it had a hood and fronts. But after trying it on, checking my measurements, the style that I was knitting just wasn't going to fit with her broad shoulders. So I had to rip it all the way back and start over again. If you're familiar with Andy Satterlund's work, I made one of her cardigans last year for Ash. Really loved the fit and the process of knitting it. So I'm using that same method here and I worked from the top down, and then I picked up stitches right along here for the fronts, and then I joined them in the underarm, and I'm working in the round. And then once I'm done with all of that, I can pick up stitches for the hood and for the sleeves. This is another design as I go project. The yarn I'm using is listed in the description, and the recipient came over yesterday to try it on. So it does look like the third time is the charm, and this will actually fit. So now I just need to keep knitting on it, and hopefully it will be done by the end of the year. The third project to meet with Miss Fortune in the past month was the Eleonora stocking. And I'm not going to grab that because honestly it doesn't look any different from the last several times that you've seen it. I thought I had some lint stuck to the working yarn, and I was trying to pick it out, and about 6 inches of yarn basically just disintegrated in my hand. I don't really know what happened, but apparently I hit a very badly spun section, which this is a pretty cheap silk yarn. It's from Knitpicks, so I had to just cut out that section and then keep going, which is really frustrating. I've had to make several cuts in this yarn because of tangles or just badly spun parts, things like that. So after unraveling 2 sweaters, I was just really frustrated and set it aside. I have picked it up again and I'm working on it, but these are knit on triple aught needles. So even when I knit, 4 or 5 repeats, you can't even tell because it's like this much. So also I can't reach it from here, and I am kind of blocked in by my pile of knits at the moment. My sweater vest is coming along at least. I did make some good progress on that, but it doesn't feel like it. I finished the second ball of yarn for the most part, but I can't finish the other 2. I can't find the other 2 balls of yarn. So it's just kind of hanging out, waiting for me to find what safe place I put the rest of the yarn in. But anyway, I have more important things to worry about right now, so that's just kind of on hold until after the holidays. I will show it to you though. So So here we are. This is most of the body. That little candy corn stitch marker is where we were last episode. And I need to make a few more rows before I can split for the underarms, and then we can move on to doing the like upper bust area. Just going to move my progress keeper here real quick, because I keep forgetting to do that. And in true to me form, I decided on all of my holiday knitting over Thanksgiving weekend. So the cowl that I showed you is going to my mom, who is spending the winter in Ohio. And then I cast on a pair of socks for my aunt. Since the whole thing with my parents' divorce, I talk about it over here, my aunt has really been taking care of my mom, who can't drive. She's been taking her to appointments and giving her advice on how to handle the lawyers and stuff, just because she's been through it herself. And normally stuff like this would be my job. I would be the one driving her places and helping her out and providing her with that moral support. But I now live 3,000 miles away, so if it can't be done by phone or email, I can't do it. So all I can really offer is that long distance moral support. And I think that it really says a lot that all of my Ohio family is from my dad's side, but they're all supporting my mom in this, and they've all really stepped up to help make her feel loved and welcomed and cared for, and they haven't abandoned her in this situation, which just really means a lot. And my aunt has been the one spearheading that. So I really want to do something as nice as possible for her for Christmas. So I started casting on a pair of socks for her. I have not gotten very far. I just started these last night. This is Knitpicks Stroll Glimmer. The color is Regal. And these are on size 1 9-inch needles. And I am going to have a contrast color for the body, but I'm just knitting the ribbing right now, and I'm really hoping that these fit, because I normally make socks for a women's size 9, and my aunt is like a 6 or a 7, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I do have to make them slightly smaller than I'm used to, and I'm hoping that 56 stitches versus my usual 60 is the right number, but we'll see. So the other project that I cast on is a gift for Ash. I don't think she watches these videos, but Ash, if you are, please skip ahead to the next segment. Okay? So I don't make a lot of amigurumi, but I had this idea to make her a Coraline style doll with the button eyes and make it as her. But then Wednesday came out, and now I'm thinking, why not make a Coraline style doll, but attach the head with one of those magnetic snaps that you put on purses, and then it's like Wednesday's doll Marie. So so this is going to be the body, and you can tell I don't make a lot of amigurumi. I've just started the decreases for the shoulder, and then I'm going to put like a little nubbin for the neck. I'm having to freehand this pattern because I could not find one on Ravelry with proportions that I liked. So I'm just kind of like looking at pictures and reverse engineering the best I can. This cream yarn is a baby yarn from Joann's. It's Bernat Softy Baby in the color Antique White. I also got some Caron Super Soft in black that I can use for her clothing and the hair. I'm also going to take some of the leftovers that I have from projects that I've made for Ash and make miniatures of them for the doll. So she'll have her own little crumb sweater, which is the Andy Satterlund pattern that I made last year. Just like that kind of thing. So it'll be very cute. So that has been where my knitting is at in a metaphorical sense. I do have one new acquisition. My congrats on a new placement. Gift to myself was a new bag to take to work. I have several bags already, but they just weren't working for me. They weren't as practical as I wanted them to be, even though they were super cute. So I found this one on Amazon. It's very heavy right now because it has all my work stuff in it. And it is a knitter's backpack. So it has pockets on the sides for your project with loops to get the yarn through. I actually keep my planner in this pocket right here. And then if I open it up, there's all these pockets for like needles and notions and stuff. There's more on the flap that I can't really show you. And then there are so many little pockets on the inside for yarn. This would be great for a large color work project. So that is what the inside looks like, full of my stuff. I don't remember how much I paid. It was on Amazon. I think it was, I know it was less than $50. And it is by this company, Ludes. But I will link to it down in the description if you want to grab one for yourself. They come in several different colors. I'm a little bit concerned that the quality isn't going to be there in the long run, but it was the best option that I found within my budget that also met my aesthetic and practical needs. Moving on to Read, Watch, Play. I have been enjoying Mr. Midnight on Netflix. This show follows a group of teens from Indonesia who are suddenly exposed to the paranormal and start a YouTube channel to help them find others with similar experiences so they can figure out what's going on. It is really good, and if you enjoyed things like Are You Afraid of the Dark, either the old one or the new one, night books, or anything along those lines, then you are really going to love this one. I love seeing the regional differences and the lore. It's a very multicultural cast, and it's just been really enjoyable and great and super creepy. And of course, I have been watching Wednesday. I watched the first 4 episodes immediately, but with everything going on, I haven't been able to get back to it. I'm hoping to do that this week. I am still struggling to read. I have finished a few audiobooks though. I listened to Well Met by Jen DeLuca, The Monuments Men, and The Witches of Litchford. I've been having a lot of trouble sleeping lately, just like insomnia and bad dreams. So these were mostly things that I listened to while I was trying to fall asleep. The Monuments Men is a comfort book for me. If you aren't familiar with it, it's about a group of specially recruited experts in World War II that were brought into the Allied Army to protect landmarks and art and to track down and recover the artworks that the Nazis stole. Well Met is a cute little rom-com that revolves around a Ren fair, which is why I picked it up. Also, Jen is a friend of Ash's. Hi, Jen. Unfortunately, as an Arrow Ace person, I had the same problem with this book that I normally do with romance books, in that I didn't like the relationship between the two main characters. I know the rest of the series follows different characters connected to the fair, so I'm really on the fence on whether or not I want to read them. I liked the overall story and characters. I just did not like that relationship, and it's such a big part of the story that I'm not sure I can get around it. And I'm not sure if it was specific to this book or if it's a writing style issue. It's so hard for me to judge with anything that has a romantic subplot, just because, especially in American books, the characters are like, oh, hi, I bumped into you at the cafe, let's jump into bed together. And there's no emotional connection or romance there, at least for me. It's very much more hormone-based than emotion-based. So this is why when it comes to romances, I usually prefer K-dramas, because they're very much in getting to know each other and developing that connection first. So this is not a criticism of the writing or of Jen. It's specifically a me thing and my issues with the romance genre as a whole. The Witches of Lichford was a new to me author, but the narrator is the same woman who does all of the Paula Braxton audiobooks, if you're familiar with her. And this book felt like it could have been written by Paula Braxton. It was very short, only about 3 hours, but I really enjoyed it. It's about a traditional witch, an atheist witch, and an Anglican reverend who have to work together to stop evil from overtaking a small town in England, which is set on the border between the Fey realms and our world. I really enjoyed it, and I need to see if this is a series or not, because I would love to see more in this world, and I think that it's open to being a series. As for gaming, I did pick up Dreamlight Valley, and I have been playing that a lot. I'm enjoying the game despite the glitches, and I really can't wait until the full version is released next year. I play mostly cozy games, so this is right up my alley, and it's been really great because I've gotten kind of bored with Animal Crossing and with Stardew Valley, and this has a lot of the elements that I like, but in a different setup and gameplay type. So let's move on to knit tea. This time we have actual tea, as in drama. Lady Di Yarns has come under fire for failing to ship subscription boxes on time. In the latest fandom-themed release, boxes have arrived with contents for the incorrect fandom, missing items, or simply not been shipped at all. Customers have been filing disputes to try and get refunds, which LDY has been fighting tooth and nail. When discussion of the issue arose on Ravelry, the threads were shut down by the powers that be, once again throwing negative light on a site already besmirched for its reaction to complaints from the disability community regarding the 2020 theme changes. LDY has been having a rough year with similar problems earlier in 2022 with another subscription box in which not all orders were fulfilled. In addition, LDY holds regular roundtable discussions to discuss activism in the yarn industry, with the proceeds allegedly going to charity. However, LDY has failed to identify which charity has been benefited, how much has been donated, or even if donations have been made. Online yarn store Eat Sleep Knit has also been dragged into the controversy after agreeing to take over fulfillment of the yarns for the fandom boxes. However, according to a Ravelry post by Eat Sleep Knit staff, about half the yarn was never received, and they have since cut ties with Lady Di, who still owes them about $10,000 according to the post. I've taken most of this information from a Reddit thread on the subject. There are probably additional updates that have happened since I wrote this, but you will find the information linked below, and within that thread there are also links to the Ravelry discussions and statements from Lady Di Yarns. If you are looking for volunteer opportunities within the yarn community that don't necessarily involve production knitting, hats, or blankets for charity, consider volunteering for the Center of Knit and Crochet. This online museum archives hand knit and crocheted items, patterns, photos, and related documents from the past and today. Volunteering positions are available in a variety of areas as well as board positions. The organization is also seeking a new director. Board membership is open to all volunteers, and diverse perspectives are encouraged. The role helps steer the organization and works in fundraising and planning. To learn more, you can email the address down below in the description. Vogue Knitting Live returns to New York City on February 9 through 12 with in-person classes and events. For more information or to register, check out their website linked down below. Red Alder Fiber Arts Retreat, February 16th through 19th, 2023, is in Tacoma, Washington. It includes 4 days of classes and a banquet. General registration is only $12, but does not include classes, class materials, or the banquet. Classes include subjects in knitting, weaving, and spinning. There are no crochet-related classes listed on the website. I have registered and will be there on Saturday the 18th. April 23 to 28, Julie DeBrew, I think, will be hosting Knitting in the West of Ireland in Galway. The retreat includes a walking tour, workshops, and 6 days being immersed in local history and culture, learning about the history of the area and local knitting traditions. The fee is £1,765, a little under $2,000 US at the time of this writing. If you have news or events from the knitting world that you would like to share, drop me a line in the comments or send me a message at knotmagicknitter@gmail.com. And now it is time to turn down the lights and cozy up as we get on to our spooky story. Tonight we have a selection of short tales from Irish Ghost Stories by Patrick O'Farrell. I picked up this little paperback while traveling in Dublin some years ago, and it has lots of short ghost stories in it. So if you enjoy the reading, consider picking up a copy for yourself. I am going to do my best with any Irish pronunciations, but I do not speak Irish. Sorry. So I'm going to do my best. Saint Malachy. One of the oldest Irish ghost stories goes back to the era of Saint Malachy, about 1094 to 1148. It tells how the saint disavowed his sister in Armagh because she lived a life of abandon and spurned religion. She died while he was in Lismore County, Waterford, and he offered Mass for her soul each day. As time passed, he neglected this practice. One night he had a vision in which an angel told him that his sister was standing in the porch of the monastery. "She has not eaten for 30 days, the angel said. Malachy then remembered that he had not offered Mass for her soul for 30 days. He robed and went to the church and began Mass. Through the glass in the door, he saw his sister clad in a gray robe. He prayed to God for her, and then saw her in a cream-colored garment inside the door of the church, but unable to approach the altar. Again, Malachy prayed for his sister, and her robe became a dazzling white. She walked to the altar with a smile on her face." A Stuart family had a home in idyllic surroundings near Creeslow, overlooking Sheephaven Bay in County Donegal. It later became Ardmuir, a Capuchin monastery where 80% of Irish Capuchins studied. A feature of its original interior architecture was a pair of oak staircases. Each one ran along a facing wall leading from the vestibule to join a long landing above. A ghost story connected with the house tells of a young friar's surprise when he saw a beautiful young woman dressed in blue standing at the top of one staircase. A common Irish superstition claims that bad luck will follow a couple who meet on a flight of steps, so the friar crossed over to the other staircase and began his ascent. Again the woman appeared. The friar returned to the first staircase and once more faced the woman. At that stage, he decided to ignore the superstition and began climbing. He met the woman halfway, and she seemed to pass through him. Locals recalled that at one time, a window of the original house had been blocked up, but no one knew why. Some claimed that it belonged to the Blue Lady, who was a Stuart, but could not offer any background to explain her appearances. They all agreed, however, that other priests and staff admitted to seeing the woman in blue in a number of locations throughout the monastery. There is disagreement about why the nocturnal visits ended. Some alleged that an exorcism took place. Others claimed that the friars became quite fond of the friendly ghost and were sorry the Blue Lady discontinued her residence in Creeslow. The Stuart house was demolished in 1966, and Ardmuir is now modernized and free from ghosts. The Hotel Child. A man named Martin Berg leased 3 Dublin houses in 1824 and opened a hotel that was to become world famous. The Shelbourne Hotel in St. Stephen's Green had the Empress Elizabeth of Austria as a guest in 1879, and its patrons down the years included the tenor John McCormack, the Dalai Lama, the Queen of Tonga, Laurel and Hardy, John Wayne, Princess Grace of Monaco, James Cagney, Peter O'Toole, and Richard Burton. Michael Collins chaired a committee that drafted the first constitution of Sarasat, Iran there. The hotel had another guest, however, whose name did not appear on the register. Staff who worked in the warren of workshops beneath the street level, repairing furniture, stocking wine, and laundering linen, knew her. She was a young girl who appeared on occasion, always looking ill and worried. Gossip suggested a number of theories. Was she the spirit of a child who had been murdered, or an orphan abandoned by a wealthy but uncaring guest? One account holds that the girl's name was Mary Masters, that she was the victim of the cholera epidemic of 1832, and that she had lived in one of the houses that became part of the original hotel. The daughter of a woman whose maiden name was Masters stayed in the Shelbourne Hotel in 1965. This woman, Sybil Leake, was reported to have contacted Mary in room 256 or 526 over years. Even ghosts get their numbers mixed up. The Hotel Guest. A house set in the foothills of the Antrim Plateau was once the abode of the mayors of Carrickfergus. One occupant, a lady named Elizabeth, became romantically involved with a soldier of the garrison at nearby Carrickfergus Castle. A tunnel linked the two buildings, and she began using it whenever she visited the castle to meet her loved one. Her husband found out, and one night he lay in wait for her in the tunnel and killed her. Knowing that her lover would be at the other end of the tunnel, he moved swiftly through. The soldier got more than a fright when, instead of his beloved, he met her raving husband, who beheaded him. In local tradition, Elizabeth was known as the Maud, and her lover, Buttoncap. Today, Dobbin's Inn occupies the site of her house, and employees have spoken of seeing Maud when they were cleaning up after a late night. She wanders through the building, wringing her hands and looking distraught. The Window Beads. Ivy House in St. Stephen's Green was once the home of the Guinness family, Earls of Ivy, but it now houses the Department of Foreign Affairs. Following a Good Friday custom in times past, people prayed on the footpath in front of the building. They were waiting to see the imprint of a set of rosary beads that appeared occasionally on a pane of glass in a certain window. The custom dates back to an incident when a Roman Catholic servant girl asked permission to go to the local church to kiss the cross. This religious practice involved visiting the church and kneeling before the altar where a brass crucifix would be left lying on a cushion. At 3 o'clock, the hour of Christ's death, the faithful would kiss the hands, feet, and face of the crucifix. The girl held her rosary beads in her hand and tried to explain how important it was for her to go. "It won't take 10 minutes, sir," she promised. When the master refused, the girl became distraught. She cried and pleaded with him to such an extent that he lost his temper and began shouting at her. Still, she begged him until, in a mighty rage, he whipped the rosary beads from her and flung them at the window. The utterly shocked girl dropped dead of the horror of what he had done. Ever after, those beads appeared in the window on Good Friday. Not a major blundell. Granard, County Longford, is renowned for the home of Kitty Kiernan, the hotel proprietor who was the girlfriend of Michael Collins. It suffered severe damage during the Rebellion of 1798 and in the War of Independence, 1916-21. J.P. Farrell, who compiled historical notes in the stories of the County Longford in 1886, described an early British garrison in the town as being the most ungovernable corps in the British service. Captain Blundell was in charge, a man who was the cream of the service in dress, manners, sporting propensities, and general recklessness. At a grand ball in the officers' mess, Blundell charmed the ladies throughout the evening. The next morning he did not appear on parade. This surprised his colleagues because he was punctual by nature and had always prided himself in playing well and soldiering well. When he still had not appeared by lunchtime, they wondered wryly if he had escorted a lady home, or if he had perhaps imbibed too heavily, something they considered most unlikely. Eventually, they went to his room and found it locked. They examined the window from the outside and saw that it too was thoroughly secured. After considerable discussion and argument, they decided to break into the captain's room. To their horror, they found Blundel's body lying on the floor behind the door, and his bloody, severed head seemed to stare at them from beneath the bed. It could not have been a suicide, nor murder, because the doors and windows had been locked from the inside. So what had happened? No one ever discovered the answer, but plenty of people in Grenard claimed to have observed the ghost of the headless Blundell, mounted on a black horse, riding through the town at the midnight hour. Dramatic entrances. Dublin's theatres have their own ghosts, not all of them playing Hamlet's father. Fishamble Street Theatre became famous for the first public performance of Handel's Messiah in 1742. It was then open but a year and was better known as Mr. Neal's Music Hall. On a wall in its green room, knocking began precisely at 10 o'clock each night and lasted for a quarter of an hour. No reason for the phenomenon was ever given. A number of backstage personnel at the Olympia Theatre in Dame Street attested to seeing a man in costume wandering in the wings. An actress believed the man was watching her performance one night. When she made her exit and approached him to introduce herself, she bumped into the wall and the man disappeared. Others claimed to have seen a glowing light moving up the stairs to the dressing rooms. This light may have been the troubled soul of a man who was on the run during the Civil War, 1922-23. He took refuge in the theater but was discovered and shot dead by his pursuers while trying to escape. Some reports claim the man's name was O'Donovan. For decades, theater folk have spoken about the Grey Lady of the Gate Theatre. One of the most recent sightings was in the wardrobe department when the Earl of Longford's company was in residence. As a wardrobe assistant sat sewing, she thought she saw Lord Longford's late wife Christine enter the room clad in grey silk. When she looked closer, the lady disappeared. In June 1971, Brian Fellons, the signalman's apprentice, was playing. Everybody had gone home, and the caretaker was on his rounds switching off the lights before locking up for the night. He was surprised to see what he thought was an actress still in the costume standing in an open dressing room doorway. He asked her to hurry. At that moment, the light on the stairs went out. The hair on his head must have been standing on end as he returned downstairs in darkness. He waited a while at the stage door, but no one came down the stairs. So that is all for tonight. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the stories and the knitting. Feel free to leave a comment, subscribe, like, leave any questions you might have for me, and I will see you again soon. I hope that you are all safe and healthy, and that you have something soft and fluffy to cuddle with. Ciao!